All right, so it's started now. Yeah, so this isn't legal advice. This is should be considered just a general legal education that helps flag issues that then you can understand the landscape, uh, areas you should pay attention to and such, and then you take this to a law firm to make final decisions and get actual legal advice on. So this is a way, if done well, that it strategically can lower your legal costs quite a bit. And lots of law firms in this space also, they don't understand all of the risks. So it's possible we could also, even when you get, well, basically make sure that the lawyer does the absolute best job. So you can take this document to the law firm, right? And if they aren't aware of that liability, then they'll see this and then they'll note that up. So you can be more confident that they're going to have a full perspective of the law if they're a general lawyer, right? And that's who you've hired, because it is hard to find people that have expertise in this area. And there's some very unusual liabilities and such. So yeah, just
And
keep that in mind. Yeah.
yeah, I thought from I thought of like weeks ago that you had mentioned about how you have network or contacts and you can help match us based on going through this questionnaire. Is that the case?
Exactly. Yeah. So whether you use lawyers that are lifestyle lawyers, or you decide to use lawyers that aren't, that's your choice. This should be able to help in both scenarios. So even if it's someone that's not within our network, you don't have, you don't find the right relationship, this is still something you can use to supplement with law firms, and it's even possible those law firms can interact with the clinic if they decide they're interested in that, because we do onboard lawyers fairly regularly. Yeah, so that's definitely part of it. And then in Lexdow also, if you go to the Find a Lawyer section, then there's even larger network of lawyers, and we have a directory for any lawyer that's a Lexdow member. So yeah, so the clinic, it's especially helpful for the lawyers that are actually practicing. And as the clinic gets more sophisticated, that'll make a bit more sense, because the lawyers will have a house with a few students, and we've got a couple of those working groups right now, but it's still like minimum viable product level.
Got it.
Yeah. But one of the perks is you can, just like manually like DM myself and the other ops and such, and we'll just white glove tends to be
Okay.
the trade-off for startups. So kind of still a little bit raw of a product, but much more direct treatment. At least that's my experience with startups. Like,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
same. That makes sense.
Okay, I'm not sharing my screen, am I? Yeah, let me share my screen as we go through this. And if I have issues, sometimes my computer gets angry when I share my screen, in which case maybe we can get you or a Svetlink to share your screens, but I'll try.
Okay.
All right, here we are. Identify the stakeholders of your product project. So located in Austin, currently registered member LLC with 3 listed down members. We also interact with artists and businesses to promote their adoption.
I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
I know this is, a 20-page document, and like I said, I was under the impression that we had that, you guys had a chance to review it before, so it's unfortunate that wasn't the case. Would it be better if we just, push it back a little bit just to give you a chance to read through? Because there's a lot of stuff in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So far we haven't done that. We haven't done that extra step of yeah, we haven't, and that isn't priced into this offering. So it tends to be a walkthrough we do with client real time. But if you want to switch it up and have something where we review and then we do that, that's good feedback on your end. Um, this questionnaire started out with us doing it in a large group and study group, and so there were not really possible to get people to study something beforehand. So yeah, this has just kind of developed naturally in a way that it's real time. We just did it with ELI 5 DAO, and it was that way, and that was we basically help fill it out with them. Like that tends to be how it is. So it's really great that you did preliminary like this deep of filling out. But I guess I'm cool with that if we reschedule and then we just kind of figure out pricing. I still have to grab that 300 anyway. So is that what you'd like to do?
I mean, we can keep going. I guess I'm just really, just unclear about we've been looking for guidance. It's hard to find. We're still without an operating agreement, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just trying to figure out like what can help fast track us to get what we need without wasting your time.
Yeah. So
Uh,
sorry.
no, I mean that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So really, what we're doing right now here is just flagging issues, and that's pretty much then hopefully you'll be able to figure out what kind of operating agreement you want, right? You go, okay, well, like for instance, ELI5, we just did it with them, and they were thinking about UNA, and then they're also thinking about on top of UNA, whether it's a 501c6 or 501c3. Those are kind of their main um, uh, uh, questions. And then as we
Yeah.
went through the questionnaire, we also highlighted other concerns they might have. For ELI5 was really mellow. I expect for you it's also really mellow. But we were just on a call with this organization called Metacourt, and if they went through this, we would have a lot of flags. It would actually be not that. So
Five, there's something that's unclear.
yeah, and if you hopefully at the end of it you feel more confident about the legal entity you want, and then you can talk to a lawyer, and then the lawyer tells you what legal entity. So, but that's where there's that final stage where
Oh,
it can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me?
Are you guys still online?
I am.
I'm here.
Oh, something on Cloud Center. Yes, yes.
Hi, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Can't hear anything. Kyle, are
How,
you there?
how about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so basically with the LI5, it was great because we didn't have any concerns with them. For you, I expect that to be the same thing. So this questionnaire should be faster than other ones. And then ultimately, it's up to you, though, to decide on the entity. Or you can hire a law firm, and then they can sort of say, yeah, you should do this entity. But that's where the clinic can't take that extra step into legal advice. So ELI5, at the end of our conversation, they went, okay, we do think we want a UNA. That's up to them, right? We gave them kind of just more context, and they also did a bunch of self-education. And then the next step we're doing with them is connecting them with lawyers that then can confirm, yeah, that's good. And the lawyers are in our clinic if that relationship ends up working out. But yeah, ultimately, for you to have confidence in the particular legal entity you want to choose, you'll have to work with a law firm. And the clinic's experience itself, we're working with Fried Frank for our legal entity, and we initially had a plan for a certain legal entity structure, and then recently Fried Frank went, no, we're going to do another one. So there's a lot of it's basically just that's where you do kind of have to fork out the cash for a proper firm, but we can get you to the point where you're highly self-educated. So you got a general sense of when the firm says you should go this way, you can give them a pushback if not, or like even give them an initial, like if you do decide on UNA, for instance, you can say to the firm, I want UNA. Do you know how to do UNAs? Is that okay? Right? And so you can kind of have that dialogue, but we can't, we can't unfortunately go to that extra point. Especially if you think like long term, these are going to be students that does it, right? So we don't really want students to be telling people what entities, but they can say, okay, this entity is a good choice, this entity is a good choice, that entity is a good choice. And as this builds out, that is what we'll also have is like matrices with the different types of entities. Right now, this questionnaire is from a couple years ago, so the product will improve, but this is kind of
Okay.
the
No,
starting point.
it's fine. Let's just get into it, please. I just want to keep on moving.
Yeah. And so, so you do have a lot written here, which is great. You can use that for hopefully your records. But yeah, when we do the questions, let's just do it more we'll just do the question itself, and then you can give me your like real time feedback, and then later we can do, if you want a more thorough review of you wrote, we can have a session like that as well. So my computer is getting angry if I screen share. Can someone else screen share?
Sure. Can you see what I'm sharing?
Not yet. I guess. I'm gonna jump out of Discord and jump back in 1 sec. Yep, I can see it. Okay, we're good. Okay, so identify the stakeholders of your. Yeah, so can you, in your own words, answer this question? Identify the stakeholders.
Well, we're a local DAO, a social DAO primarily. So really our stakeholders are, I'd say, a couple fold. We have our NFT holders, which are our members, and then we have community, which is basically events that are open to everybody. And then, beyond that, policymakers that we work with, and businesses that we work with from an innovation capacity. So there's a lot of different layers to what we do.
Okay, and so is there a type of commerce that's happening between parties? Or?
Our primary revenue streams outside of membership is through sponsored events, and those will specifically be correlated to, usually around a big conference or a big event. Being in Austin, Texas, we have a lot of those coming through, many of which are specific to the crypto space. So we've been able to literally benefit just from proximity there.
Okay. Benefit by proximity. So
Just by being in Austin and just conferences coming to Austin, and we'll say, hey, we're going to throw a big event, a big crowd, market it, and really kind of more like a marketing and events planning company from that regard.
gotcha. So marketing an event, and then the other one is crypto advocacy, doing legislative, like lobbying. Is that those are the two veins?
Yes, but we don't really get income for that.
Sure. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
our,
I'm trying to just ask questions to kind of get to the flagging, right? Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
um,
Yeah, our primary inflows are for one, membership, and two, sponsorship. Very, very distant third would be merchandise, physical merchandise. But yeah, then our primary stakeholders would be, one, community, two, policy and advocacy, and three, innovation, businesses and such.
innovation. Can you describe that a bit more? That one is.
Yeah, so working with businesses or artists to figure out how to adapt their Web3 strategy. So that's more of a consultative approach. We also did a pitch competition recently where, exactly what it sounds like. And we're able to get sponsors and draw a lot of awareness to all the building going on, all the Web3 building in Austin. So pretty exclusively focused on the Austin area for, well, everything.
Okay. Yeah, so that's maybe one of the reasons you're having issues with legal entity, because I'm just looking right here. Just I would say running a party event is a different legal entity than lobbying, and then you're also adding other the kind of jack of all trades. So it's definitely interesting. I can see how the legal entity
We're not
thing
not
is
necessarily lobbying yet, but I've totally, I philosophically think that what probably behooves us the most is several different legal entities to cover multiple bases. But I'm not a lawyer. That's just kind of a gut I have as far as the different streams that we're in. But
yeah.
we don't actively like pay a lobbyist or anything like that. Any sort of contributions that we've had when politicians have been involved have come directly from members directly to those campaigns. So there hasn't really been a direct correlation of like the LLC providing funds in some capacity. Not yet, but who knows?
And then and activities. So I believe Brendan told me a little bit about what y'all are doing on the and it's possible. I don't know anything about lobby laws, so that's part of this is right. We can just flag things for you, and this is a great example
Okay.
because even students will just not know a lot but be able to flag.
Yeah.
Where in this case, I'm genuinely I don't know anything about lobbying, so it's easy for me to be like a student in this case. But yeah, totally. I just if you might accidentally not thing to focus on is not just paying the lobbyists, but you yourself being the lobbyists. So like when I'm
Got
working
it.
with Brennan with Dow Coalition, we've got the Liberty Partner Groups as our lobbyists, but they're the ones that have the relationship with the senators and all that. So we don't do anything with the Hill. We're just about fundraising, and then we give the lobbyists the money, and they do stuff with the Hill. So if ATX is doing stuff with the Hill directly, that's where I don't know anything about the law, so I'm just going to raise a flag there. And then for party events, people can get hurt at parties and such. So that's to me where something to look out for as well. Flag is
Yeah,
yeah.
with the specific events, we always have we've got some very well seasoned event planners, so we're always very well insured for any sort of in-person event that we have. But yeah, that's a good point to bring up.
So how are you insured without a legal entity?
Well, we have a legal entity. We're an LLC.
Oh, okay. So you're okay.
I just don't know that that's the most appropriate. Yeah, I mean, that's the very first thing I had written on there. We're a member managed LLC in the state of Texas.
Great. Yeah, I'm reading that. Um, okay. Uh, well, it seems like you've picked your legal entity then. So I
No,
mean,
I mean, we are an LLC, but I just don't know that that's the best because of what you were just mentioning too, like because of the lobbying and the policy stuff. I mean, it kind of started as an events company and then has morphed into these other things. So based on what I've learned more recently as about UNAs, for example, is that more appropriate given our governance and all of that? So, yeah, I mean, we definitely still have some questions. Just because we are an LLC doesn't mean that that's the most appropriate thing for us. That was literally just the default from a year ago when formation documents were getting finalized. We hadn't been educated about UNAs at that point. We didn't have any guidance on what other DAOs were doing. At the time, a lot of things were just defaulting to Wyoming, and that just wasn't something that we were wanting to do as a Texas entity. So that's kind of why we ended up as an LLC. But and that's why I go back to my comment on, you know, uh, does because we have these different avenues, is there a way that we should structure it so that maybe we have the LLC is the events company and then there's a different entity that is for advocacy, and then how does that all work together? It's not something I've ruled out, or I just don't know. So we are an LLC, but it just doesn't seem to fully fit because we're a little bit different than other DAOs.
yeah, and I mean, I personally understand that. I'm with the clinic we're building out. It's I'm spending quite a bit of
Yeah.
time thinking about the steps to have multiple entities to deal with different issues. So yeah, that's totally makes sense,
Yeah.
and you do have the LLC, so that is something that already exists. One good rule is uh, it's hard to wind up or get rid of a legal entity, and there's possible tax implications and such. So just generally, it's try to have the legal entity when it's the right time. I know that that's a frustrating, but it's kind of almost in some senses a gut feeling when it's the right moment to pick the legal entity. Picking it too early, then it could be the wrong kind of legal entity. Definitely picking one that is too complicated, then that is, if the group goes in a different direction, suddenly you're stuck with all that complexity. That's why
Well,
it's good
I'm
to do
coming in
this.
after the fact, so I'm dealing with the hand I've been dealt. So there's that. So just kind of working within this. But one thing the LLC has been helpful for was because it's a recognized entity, and we were able to say, hey, these are the people that are the LLC owners. So we have a traditional bank account with a Austin bank, for example. So that's something that we were able to do because of the LLC. So another consideration I've had is because we have this element of, even though we're decentralized, some of our activities have to be centralized, like the event planning, the marketing. I mean, we've got a marketing and events planner. Some of that stuff just has to be consolidated, right? So even though we're a DAO, there's some basic operations, and then on my side of the house with operations and finance, there's some centralization there, and then we try to enable the rest of the members and community to step up and do other things. And I intentionally leave that vague because it's supposed to just be, hey, if you've got an idea, let's run with it, put a proposal together, and let's figure it out. But some of those more basic business entities or business operations, do need a little bit more centralization. So that's where I think the LLC um, could be helpful for us because of that. So, like, one thing I've thought about is there some TBD other entity, and that's where the treasury funds get voted on and directed by the members, and then say, like, maybe once a year we say, or maybe every 6 months is more valid, just to say, okay, well, in order just to pay our annual or our monthly subscriptions and things like that for all the things that we pay, we estimate that the next 6 months of continuing operations we will need X, and then literally put in a request to the treasury to have that money sent to the bank account, and then all of the really core business activities happen within the LLC. So still TBD whether or not that is the marketing entity or something. But a number of the sponsors that we work with prefer to send to a fiat account rather than a crypto wallet. So that's not always the case, but it is often the what we're working with. So that's another scenario I've considered just based on all these different angles.
Great. And yeah, I didn't want to say that the LLC is a wrong choice. It's just the existing choice. As you say, you have the hand that you're dealt. Like, that's pretty much it. Yeah. And just going forward, it's like, I mean, you're doing all the right things to see what is the best options out there at the time, and then make the decision kind of last minute to kind of try to maximize the possibility you're going to make the best choice. Like, I guess it's just like timing, and a lot of time people want, because it's the law, they want to get things done early, right? And for choosing a legal entity, unfortunately, it's an art, and later early, it's kind of more just like, okay, this is the right moment. But it seems like, yeah, because you're doing local, regional stuff, which really is that even a DAO, that the LLC, it seems like it everything you're describing, that's been a great choice for you all. And the way I'd articulate it is now you're getting more and more into DAO type things, and why another
Yeah.
entity,
Yep.
yeah, it makes some sense. Yeah, it's confusing because lots of, it's easy to call oneself a DAO, but then oftentimes. Okay, so how does your project benefit the world? I think we've gone over this a bit, but if you can quickly just say, like, yeah, the positive impact of ATX DAO in your own words.
Yeah, bringing together the local Web3 and crypto enthusiasts and serving as a model for it really to be replicated in other cities or local areas.
Great. And yeah, actually now that stakeholders, do they, so the only stake, so could I enjoy an ATX as someone that's not in locally, or is it's only for locals?
I mean, theoretically, yes. I think that because so much of what we do is about being in person, like, there's not really a speculative element to what, so it's not really like a, I mean, technically yes, but we do have an application process where we kind of filter through whoever's interested in joining ATX DAO, but then um, periodically we'll have a member who will say like, oh, I'm moving, or I'm just not as involved as I thought I would be, so I'm going to sell my NFT on OpenSea, and then those will change hands. I mean, that's been kind of limited in this case, but I guess just some additional context for you on that to answer that question is like, yes, technically you could, but because of so much that we do is very hyper Austin focused, I don't know why you would if the reason why you wanted the NFT was to be part of the community if you weren't able to, be present locally. But yeah, I mean, technically you could.
Gotcha. Okay. And do you track all your members, like who they are? It sounds like you might with the.
We do the ones, and because when people are getting involved, they want to show up to things. So we generally have an idea of who they are, or at least somebody knows who they are. Um, Through the application process, we're able to capture a lot of front end information from people before they even mint their NFTs.
Hmm.
Like just basic things like email address, because we still use emails as a way. It's kind of difficult to get mass communication out just to a bunch of NFT holders that all use different you know sources of things. So we do like we operate like a DAO in the governance capacity, but yeah, I mean there's a lot of sources that we have that are very much centralized, and it does get difficult to manage too, by the way, when there are those rare ones that change hands. Then unless like we know, like one of these happened actually just this past week, and we have to pretty much rely on just somebody that's in the know in the DAO being like, hey, yeah, like here's how you can get connected and involved. That's pretty much it. So a little clunky process on that end, but do the best we can.
Okay. Um, yeah. Okay. I just added some notes there. Can you your pro?
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Quick question from my side. Yeah, from my understanding is that you face your members and collect their data through the LLC. Am I getting it right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay.
So are you thinking
It's
about
ultimately,
KYC?
ultimately, sorry.
Oh, Svetlink. I was just saying, are you thinking about KYC, like that they're KYCing all their members? Is that what you're thinking?
Not only the membership identification, but the collection, storage, and the entire
Oh,
processing of their data.
yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Well, I mean, the data really, the membership is denoted by holding the NFT or not. So there's the wallet addresses assigned with that. I mean, we're not collecting people's driver's licenses and like addresses or anything like that unless they're, a contributor, and then we are having them fill out a W-9. So that would be for compensated services. So, so we do have that going on. It's small right now, but I hope it'll continue to grow just because it's a way to get more people involved. But so there's a little bit of a difference there. There's the members that have the ability to vote on a proposal, and any NFT holder can submit a proposal. And then there's the contributors who, before they're allowed to receive payment for services that they're doing on behalf of ATX DAO, those people fill out a W-9 form, and we pay them in USDC, and we've got all that going on right now too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're doing all the KYC stuff, so that's a positive. I guess the flip side of the KYC is then privacy and those regulations. Svetlink is very aware of the GDPR, which is the European regulation
Hmm.
that's
Yep.
fairly high watermark. I don't know what Texas law is. That's and U.S. Yeah, I don't actually. I'm not very versed in U.S. But in any case, you one nice thing about your DAO is you're not international, so you really can only worry about Texas and U.S. law, and then you're okay.
Right.
Um, So best practice, you can maybe have a much more relaxed best practice on privacy. But yeah, at some point you should. It's probably good to have a Texas lawyer that works with you on the regular, and they can, because you really can just fit within Texas because you were local, unless you change your mind, right? But it sounds like you're staying local, so that's a big headache that most other DAOs have to handle. That you then a lot of our questionnaires are structured around, so you can kind of
And
relax go.
even, yeah, and even for the PII that we do collect for the contributors, which is legal name or entity name, maybe if they have an EIN or something, um, and then address or social security number. I mean, but we have all of that where, because I don't want to store that information personally. I don't want the liability myself of having access to it.
Hmm.
So we have a portal that stores all of our W-9 information where I don't even go in and touch it. So that's been good. We're basically, I'll get the person's email address and then I'll have a name that I input for my records, which is basically whatever I want to call them. And then they get an email alert. They log in, put in their information to the W-9, and then I get an email saying, saying Joe Schmo filled out a W-9. He's good to go. So that's been a really good process because I certainly don't want to, have the liability of exposing anyone else's PII, which works really well.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, the main thing we're doing right now is just flagging, right, and kind of giving our gut feeling of whether the flag is really hot or mild or whatever. And then
Yeah.
if you want full confidence that your privacy is correct, then for you, I would say not just hire a lawyer to confirm it, but also a Texas lawyer. It sounds like that's not really a concern on your part. So hire a lawyer where you priorities on what your
Yeah.
resources are, what we can actually pay for. But yeah, so next one is, can you cause
That's
harm? So I would say the most concerning harm that I've heard so far is accidents at events, and those harms are few and far between, but they can actually be
Yeah.
very substantial.
Huge.
Loss of life, other ones that. Okay. Does or could the product code have a bug? Yeah. Do you have code that you're doing?
Um, no, not necessarily, but I mean, that's not to say we couldn't. If we're, like, say we're working with a business, we haven't yet gotten into that level. Um, like, say a business came to us and wanted us to drop an NFT project for them or build smart contracts for them. Those are examples of things that we might do, but we haven't done.
Okay, so you do think of yourself as a service DAO for like all your members, I guess. Is that, or your members? There's so many of your members are devs that it's possible. Uh,
Well, I guess that would fall more into the if a business is coming to us and looking for some expertise, like they're not Web3 savvy, but they want to, um, do something in the Web3 space. We have a lot of the technical expertise within our membership base that could basically be an extension or a consultant to them, even up to, building code or some sort of smart contract for them. But we haven't gotten to that level just because I don't think the industry is quite there yet. I mean, the past 6 months have had a lot of negative press. I think it scared a lot of traditional businesses away from the space.
yeah. Well, one thing to think about when you get that opportunity is, is there any reason to uh, have your contractors engaged through ATX DAO? So ATX DAO can help network that relationship, be a club that's what LexDAO is. It's a business association. So if ATX goes
Yeah,
more and
exactly.
more in that way, then that's something we you might find out you want to do. That's a 501c6, which on the face of it, there are some things that make sense because you have membership and there's a membership fee to join, right?
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah. So in that case, yeah. So LexDAO doesn't. Lots of lawyers do work for clients, do consultation work, but LexDAO isn't involving itself in that. It's just almost like the cafe where people meet and then go off somewhere and do what have you.
Exactly. And that's exactly how we've talked about like if a business were to come to us and how would we work we would basically contract with the business as ATX DAO LLC with the business and then we would, price out anything to them and as part of that pricing it would include the, compensation going to whoever was doing the thing. So That's how we've talked about how it would work hypothetically.
Okay. Okay. In that case, you do want it to flow through you and what have you. So then the question, big question is, are you? I guess if I want to see six, but that's thinking you're a nonprofit. So if you're doing this and you're consultant for profit and such, then yeah, your existing LLC
Yeah.
seems like that might be what is. So a lot of the times that this entity, this extra entity, other than LLC, is we're asking, is there a nonprofit component? And then that, for
Yeah.
instance, at UNA, the UNA is an unincorporated nonprofit, so you wouldn't be able to use the UNA if you decide on UNA for this. So, okay, I put that in there. Next one, do you have a process to monitor current and potential exploits, hacks, bugs? You're using, I assume you're using, like your NFT, did you write that NFT or is that something that's like Open Zeppelin standard or what have you?
No, it was something that one of our engineers built back before I joined. But we did have one that was stolen, that was hacked, which was unfortunate. But like a member of ours that we and literally the hacker then took his ATX DAO NFT out of his wallet and put it up on OpenSea and was trying to sell it there. So,
Oh, okay, interesting. And do you know if the exploit was because of the smart contract or because of like psyops or where the person gave their private key or something?
yes, I think it was almost like a phishing
Okay,
situation where the private key was compromised, I think. But no, I don't think it had anything to do with the smart contract. It was more of the keys being compromised.
okay. Um, does your product project, as envisaged or implemented, comply with the laws of jurisdictions? Um, I'm just gonna skip this one. Do you have any comments on this one? The regulatory product design thing. I mean, I guess my one flag I already mentioned is the if you're in engaging with lobbying, um, not just paying out, but actually interacting with legislators,
Mm-hmm.
then you should check out the laws there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, because you could be an unregistered lobbyist, or I don't know the law. Unfortunately, just I do know that there is law, at least with DC. So yeah, so I'll just
Yeah.
write that here, right here. Okay, and then otherwise, yeah, I can't think of anything. Um, with your role with regards to the product project, would your team or anyone thereof qualify as a financial service provider?
No, not that I mean, we have people with certifications, different professional certifications, but yeah, no one's actively making financial advice and on behalf of ATX DAO at least.
Yeah, and one thing about financial service provider too in this context, people have tokens. So, do you have like I know you have NFT? Those are a type of token, but what about
Hmm.
ERC20 tokens? So like like um, stablecoin is
Okay.
ERC20.
Oh, like a native token like ATX coin or something?
Yeah.
No, we don't have that. We've had a lot of a lot of people voice that like that wasn't something that we wanted to explore.
Okay. And you don't. It seems like no ERC20, and you don't want it either. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that's the case.
Okay. That is one way to manage DAOs. So we'll go over that a little bit later. But our recommendation for that, I'll just say actually right now, is that if you do those tokens, have them be non-transferable. So then, really, in a sense, they're just
Right.
another way to vote on things, and they're not speculative and such. So the likelihood of you ever getting charged with security is, so far we haven't seen it. It's pretty remote, right? All indications. In your role with regard to the product, would your team or anyone else require as a virtual asset service provider?
Yeah, based on how I interpret that question, I don't think so.
Yeah. I also don't think so. You have your NFT, but
Right,
we'll
right.
hopefully, yeah, there's a question to go over a little more detail. There is, because your NFT is transferable, that is something to think about. What are the,
I mean, I'd prefer if it wasn't transferable at all. It's just that was just how the first set of them were designed. We're getting to a point where we're gonna have a new, like the next generation of them, just because we only had a fixed amount of the initial NFTs, and next iteration of membership rounds, I do think that we're gonna be more diligent and specific about how those are designed as far as transferability.
okay.
Don't forget to have the latest state of operations and build up reflected in your terms of service, meaning that if you set the rules that NFTs are non-transferable, it should be clearly communicated to the membership and potential new joiners that
Yeah.
these are the rules that you follow. I didn't have the chance to look into your general terms. I don't see them on the website, but perhaps Kyle mentioned that this is something we are also capable of vetting the governing policies, the terms of service and privacy policy for a website, and advice on various matters, pinpointing some problems and suggesting some hot fixes.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. A lot of those policies and such we have in a token gated portal.
Okay, yeah, and that's a very great point, Sven. Like, it's that for this particular token, it sounds like you're already kind of naturally doing this, where you track when a member sells an NFT, and you try to see that they sell it to another local person, right? That you agree to. But totally, you can have it in your terms of service that you're involved in that process directly, and that maybe you then have your tokens always transferable. It's just that, right? So people, when they leave Austin area, they can sell their membership, right? So yeah, terms of service is a great way to deal with that, not on the code side, but on the just the interpersonal side of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what are the data protection? And again, yeah, we can help with that. Writing template terms of services and such, especially Svetlink's house. That is something that the clinic can assist with. What are the data protection requirements that could be applicable to you in relevant jurisdictions? So I think we had some conversation already about data
Yeah.
protection.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
did.
So we can move forward with it. Are there any new laws or regulations that may enter into force? Um, I suppose we can just move forward with this, unless there's something you well, you wrote here. What was it, Jordan Teague's status? What is this? You wrote here with
That Twitter link was not mine.
oh, okay. Oh, you're just the purple. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. These were my comments from. Oh, okay. So I've added some stuff, then that's not yours. In other sections, gonna get rid of that right now. Okay, so just this part's yours. Yeah, and one thing that's interesting with you is that part of what you want to do is that you have a voice in new laws.
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so decentralization. Has the core team ceased control over the product? So to me, it sounds like so far that you're actually highly centralized, but perhaps you can describe the ways that you're not centralized. And by the way, that's totally fine. Like always to stay centralized. Or oftentimes what happens is early projects, it's way better to be centralized to start than everything's set up, the how-tos and such, and then there's a move towards decentralized. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we started out super centralized, which is, when you only have 20 people, it's kind of how it is. But now that we've grown more, we've been more strategic about decentralizing certain things. But then what we were talking about a little bit ago about anything that falls into core business activities like operations, finance, or the marketing and event planning, then those activities are certainly centralized. Filing taxes, for example.
Yeah, and filing taxes, I mean, that's where the legal entity innovation, where the legal
Yeah,
entities are different in DAO space, that's what they help deal with. That there are still members that do things that have a certain amount of accountability, but they for the filing taxes and such. But then they also have lots of accountability to all the other members. That's why this is
exactly.
kind of a brand new space, is because so far they're really the people who file taxes are people that are like employees in a structured company. So how do we get that kind of work done while also still be decentralized? And there are DAOs that are successfully doing that. Um, so that's something.
Yeah.
Okay, centralized with events.
The governance is 100% decentralized. As far as like even though, I'm an operator and have these certain responsibilities and certain functions that I'm responsible for, I still have the same vote as someone who's not actively engaged at all.
Mm-hmm. So it's one token, one vote, right?
Uh, yes, with the exception being the founding rounds, there were 12 of them. They each have two. That was really just because of the founding member rights.
Okay. One token, one vote, but founders have two. And then, what are the kind of things you all vote on, or even, and also things you don't vote on? You're just saying that like each vote, you use snapshot. Is that right?
We use Snapshot, yes. Most proposals to date have been around treasury allocations. So, hey, I've got this great idea. Here's a project I want to do. Here's how much it's going to cost, and et cetera, et cetera. There's been a couple, I'd say probably 90% of the proposals that get thrown out there are in regards to treasury fund movement in some capacity. There's a couple others have been organizational in nature. So when we went to this more decentralized, or we didn't have any committee heads like we had before or something, that was a proposal that didn't necessarily have treasury implications, but still went through Snapshot.
That one, the committee head one. That was what you said. Committee head.
Yeah, when we were smaller, there was like 12 different committee heads, and then we've moved into more of a giving circle, so kind of like coordinate,
Okay.
um, something like that, and we've had a lot more engagement than with as far as number of contributors versus when we were just had the centralized committee heads, because it's almost like, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything because the committee head's the person who does stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay. And then for treasury, is it everything that's treasury you vote on, or there's certain things only, and then also for the fiat money?
yeah, things like the monthly subscriptions and all of that, anything that's I mean, those are all kind of just cost of doing business. Um, like we don't have to get those types of things approved monthly, like our Google Workspaces, subscription, or MailChimp, or whatever it is. But anything related to an event, like if we're throwing an event, we put together a budget for it, and that has to be approved by and reach quorum. We have a quorum of 24 votes. Um, and then it has to reach quorum and have a majority.
Okay. So I'm gonna say treasury vote for sizable treasury payouts. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. But I mean, we'll have the same scenario. Someone wants to spend $1,000 on something versus $20,000. It's still the same thing. But yeah, like the little, oh, I need to spend 30 bucks a month on QuickBooks, like that. Yeah, we don't do for that.
So that's so you do have like, is it actually petty cash, or um, you don't have a name for it?
Don't really have a name for it, but I do have it identified in our financial policies, basically just to say like as if it's related to ongoing business operations or something like that. Like for example, when we're filing taxes, right? We have to pay the accountant. I don't have to go back and request money for that because it's a known thing and people are aware that it's some amount of money we're going to have to pay, and I just have to say, hey, it's X amount, we need that released. That doesn't have to be voted on.
Like mandatory business expenses are covered per se.
Exactly. Yep.
Good, yeah, mentor. I wrote operational, but I like mandatory business better.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
And then you said release, so there is a multi-sig.
Yes.
Okay.
Multi-sig and then the fiat bank account are the two things we have.
And people also vote for the fiat, yeah? On Snapshot? Or
Um, yeah, I mean, technically it's all lumped together as far from a proposal perspective. Um, but yeah, I mean, people, it kind of just depends on where the fund's going to be coming from and, how much money is in the fiat account, if that's going to cover ongoing operations.
yeah, that's more under the hood, and the other members don't need to.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think I captured that well. Um, well, we're at time. These usually take 2 hours, so we're a little bit behind right now for this one, but that's okay because we got through quite a bit and just kind of preamble. So I expect other aspects of this to move a little bit faster than normal because we already covered them a bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Now that you have a good sense of what we're doing and how we do it, I think a lot of the questions are pretty self-explanatory.
yeah, hopefully. I mean, there is more complexity to your situation because of how many things you're doing, right? So it does seem like in the long run you might find out you have 5 or 6 different organizations, but Lexstyle, right? We'll have very soon our overall ecosystem. Yeah, we're getting up to around like 5 or 6 different organizations. So there you go. That's what
Yeah.
us fancy DAOs. That's what we get to do.
Yeah, and then I kind of look at it from two sides of it too. There's one is the legal entity and what does that picture look like? What form does it shape? What's the interaction between those different entities? But for the members' perspective, they really don't care about that stuff. They're just like, oh, I'm a member. So how do you make it easy for them where they don't have to be like, well, I'm a member of the 501(c)(6) entity? I mean, at the end of the day, that's not the experience we're going for. So it is kind of a balance um, as we inevitably, probably like you just said, engage with different entity types in addition to what we're already doing, trying to preserve that unity of no, I'm just part of ATX DAO. So
Yeah, we struggle with that as well, and that's another one where finding the right timing for that new legal entity, that kind of art of it, has been playing in for us. And one thing, a concept that's helped is guilds. So we have projects, but then when a project gets to that size where it really is kind of its own guild within our kind of meta guild, then that's when it kind of crystallizes into a legal entity. And guild is a kind of an actual DAO concept, so it relates to traditional guilds, but it's
uh,
also kind of
we have we have guilds too. Is that we have like the community guild, innovation guild, and policy guild. So is that what you typically see then, where a guild maps relatively into like a one for one for a legal entity? Because I've considered that as a possibility too.
Well, it sounds like the way you're using guild, it's not that way. But that's the way we're
Yeah.
using guild. It is, yeah. The guild is its own legal entity, but it takes some time to figure that out because the
Right.
social organizing is the way you just described. We experienced that as well, and then but how does it make sense with the legal organizing? And it often takes a few months to sort it out. It's really complicated.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Well, we'll book another time, and looking forward to our second call.
Okay. Do you want me to make a note here of where we stopped, which I think would.
Sure, if you like. We also have the video if we forget, what have you. For me, the indicator will be that I see the text is.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay. It works. I'll just highlight this C2 in a color so we know where to pick up.
Perfect.
So sounds good.
Well, have a lovely weekend.
So much for
Yeah.
you too. Bye.
Yes, goodbye. Hey,
Hey,
Kyle,
how's it going?
can you stay for a minute longer?
Yeah.